Running. Welcome to, boy, I really got to phone up Matt Witt for these because he does the intro far better than me, but I'll do my best Matt Witt impression. Attack of Opportunity. And fade out. Gentlemen, welcome, one and all, to a rare video edition, but it is also a podcast for our Attack of Opportunity, where we take a behind-the-scenes look, not only at ourselves, but the content creators who we admire, who share content with us, and possibly work with us on and off in the future. But that's another story. Today, it is my privilege and honor to have two of the three venture captains. These gentlemen and lady have an exceptional YouTube channel where they delve into the Pathfinder RPG lore. And they have a presentational video where Ray, the voice of the show, and Henri, the lore finder, one of the guys that dig up all these interesting facts, put together a script, put together a slideshow, make it a video, compress it into 17, 20 minutes, and make it a lot of fun for you to digest and learn a lot. Because, as I'm going to try and tag, maybe they can sell this, for themselves later, there's always more lore to learn. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show. Ray, Henri, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, it's an honor
to jump in. Oh,
our first question that we love to ask you, we'll start with Ray, because we're doing a bit of a double header today. Usually we do a one-on-one interview, but the venture captains are three. I could only get two of you today, so apologies. We have Ray the venture captain, we have Henri the venture captain, and number three
was Chibi.
Chibi
is the online handle that she goes by. We all tend to go by our own little personal names in the Discord server that brought us all together. And Henri and Chibi were the founder. The idea for this show was originally theirs, and they brought me on board because I was the one who had experience with voiceover and video editing, and it all just kind of grew from there.
Great. Now, you guys, you're saying you have a Discord server that people can look up and join?
Not exactly. It's mostly a private server where we organize for D&D campaigns.
No, that's fine. Just to be clear, because you have a whole bunch of people. You'll have a whole bunch of people messaging me going, "Oh, where's the Discord server? I can't find it. I want to talk to them personally." So 2 out of 3 isn't bad. Yes, we'll go with that.
It's about as good as it's going to get, because as we pointed out off camera, Chibi's not a fan of voice. But she's totally willing to do everything to help out the channel, but she'd rather not do interviews and such.
Well, I hope she's listening. I hope she approves of us asking questions and you guys answering for her, and she's here with us.
She gave us the go-ahead to do this, and we'll be sharing the video with her later.
In spirit. So I noticed there are other venture captains around the net. One thing that makes you guys stand out is the very interesting symbol that I have posted up here. A nice faded parchment background, and it's a circle with 3 lines through it. And I asked you guys off the show before we started, does this mean that there's 3 of you? But I believe Henri was sort of telling us exactly what that rune symbol meant. And this is how you can find the right venture captains, not those fake venture captains that have stolen your name. Can you explain the rune to me?
Right. So that symbol is called the cage, and it's the cosmological representation of the planet Golarion. If you play Starfinder, you know that Golarion is just a part of a star system. Just like on Earth, there's Mars and Venus, whatever. And if you were to draw all those planets, you would find that each of them has a symbol, and this one is the symbol for Golarion, which is the planet where all of the Pathfinder content happens on. When you get to Starfinder, there's a lot more, but yeah, that's about it. We picked Golarion, we picked that rune specifically because, there were 3 of us, but mostly because we really liked it. And because, I felt like it.
I think the police.
I think Henri's being arrested. We have to cut this interview short.
Yeah, my street's really busy, so I'm really sorry for all the noise.
No, that's fine. So
they're trying to shut you down.
So for the theater mind aspect of our podcast, those who don't get to our YouTube channel to watch this, which will be up later today, hopefully as a vodcast, imagine 3 straight lines cut off on an angle, draped straight over a circle in a sort of, I guess you could say, the classic black brush pen stroke looking. And that's a Rovagog symbol. And he is one of the nasties, I believe, in the Pantheon for Golarion. Is that true?
Well, it's not a symbol about him, the symbol means it's called the cage because, well, the purpose of Galarian is to keep Robogog sealed, which is why the planet itself it's usually called the cage.
So one way to put it is, it's essentially an artistic interpretation of what the planet actually is. That's why it vaguely shaped like a ball, but then those lines coming down turn it into represent what it actually is, which is to serve as the prison cell for this unstoppable creature.
Yeah, I got that. It's the caveman on the wall style. You know, we don't have we don't have a flashier medium. No, I actually think that's really, really cool. Okay, I've skipped the first question, so I better go back to it. So let's start with Ray, the voice that you will usually hear on the Venture Captain videos. The question that we always like to ask, supposed to be the first question that we always like to ask a guest on our show is, Ray, how did you first know that you were into this pastime, this becoming a geek, a nerd, one of us? What got you into it?
See, that's a layered question, because if we're talking specifically D&D, that's a much more recent development. If we're talking just as a geek, I guess I was always into games. That was always my big thing, was video games more than anything else. Obsessed over them as when I was young, and that never stopped. And once it got to, I think, 2012, I was going through a bit of a depressive crisis where I don't want to get too far into that, but basically I was not doing too well at the time. And I saw an ad for a convention. Now, conventions I always knew were a thing, but I live in a shitty backwater town in northeast England. So I didn't think we had any conventions where I lived. I didn't think that was a thing that we were even something that we could even get close to, being the unwashed, dirty masses that we were. And then I saw this ad and I'm like, oh, okay, I think I'll check this out. So I just went there on a whim and was just exposed to this insane cacophony of other culture, just comics, games, anime, just all these things that I barely scraped the surface of beforehand. And from that point on, I was hooked. And I kind of drifted away from some of those things in later years, and games were the one thing that I always stayed constant to. And as for D&D, about, I'd say like 14 months ago or something, I joined the server that we mentioned before because a friend invited me. And I just started playing D&D, and I've just been learning all of this lore as I go. And the thing that a lot of people don't expect and don't get about the show is that I'm actually learning at the same rate they are. Everything that you find out in the episodes, I am also learning for the first time in most cases, which is why my pronunciation of some of the names leaves something to be desired.
Oh, so you're the hired handsome actor with a face for radio, as they would say. Sorry, it's the theater of a mind joke. Whoa, no, that's good.
I was hired, it would imply I was being paid, but the rest is true.
Today's episode is a sort of hands across the water as Canada is talking not only to the UK, but Henri, same question. And while we're at it, where would you call home? But what is the experience where you decided, yep, I'm one of us, a geek, a nerd?
Well, I've always been a bit of a loner. I was never really too good at sports, and when you're from South America, which, by the way, I'm from Argentina, that's kind of a big deal. If you're not really the kind of guy who's running around the football field, you're probably not going to have too many friends.
Sorry, I must interrupt there. That's soccer for those in North America. It's just a thing. We have something else called football, and it's not the same thing.
I won't interrupt your story, Henry, but I'll just quickly throw this in there. Exactly the same. England's also crazy about the football, and I did not ever care for it.
No, it's huge. It is absolutely huge around the world, except here in North America, where we have hockey in Canada and football and baseball in America. They're nuts for that. Soccer is big, but not as big. And the rest of the world is running around playing what you call football. But anyway, sorry, back to Argentina. Henri?
Well, yeah. So, I was kind of a bit of a loner. I spent my days reading. I mean, I had friends, of course, but we weren't that close. So, my afternoons were mostly spent playing video games, reading, whatever. And one of the things I picked up was Yu-Gi-Oh!, the card game. You've probably heard of it.
Yes.
This awesome anime that goes with it. So, yeah, And since there were methods to play the game online, I got into the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh playing community, and well, that led me to know a lot of people online who eventually invited me to a Pathfinder game Discord server. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into D&D. I just people just threw the core rulebook at me and like, read this, okay?
Yeah.
Competitive card games, the gateway drug to anime, the gateway drug to D&D. Now, we're actually talking about Pathfinder, which is a spin-off from the 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons. A lot of people call it 3.75 because when D&D brought out 4th edition, it really changed a lot of aspects of the game. Some people got mad. Now they've come back around with 5th edition. But see, D&D is still a glossary term for a lot of fantasy RPG, even though specifically these guys do Pathfinder lore. I just don't want any people just going, well, that's not D&D. Well, sorry, but kind of is. You know, it became the blanket term for so many fantasy RPGs.
It reminds me, I mean, I don't want to see the exact name, but I think like the server is basically just that. It's played mostly Pathfinder, but I think we just called it some variant of this is D&D. No, wait, that's not true. We named it after that place, didn't we, Henry?
Yeah, the thing you're thinking about.
I'm remembering now. It's just basically called a variant of D&D, but the main room is called like Sigil or something.
Yeah, that actually comes from Planescape, by the way.
I remember
which
that.
Is sorry.
I remember that. I was around when it came out.
Planescape.
Sorry, my age is showing.
I actually got into reading Planescape way after it was discontinued, but I've actually read quite a bit about it. So the name comes from Sigil, which, you know, it's the donut city atop of the infinite spire that is the Outlands. And yeah, it was kind of a joke name, you know, because it's the city of doors and it's the hub for all of our D&D campaigns. Our DM Chibi is actually running like 5 at the same time. It's insane.
I remember how intimidating that was because you tell your players, all the regular guards, you know, those guys that are supposed to arrest you when you do the murder hobo thing through town, yeah, they're all 20th level. The generic guard that arrests you, all of them, 20th level fighters, welcome to Planescape. And, you know, it's an epic setting to wrap your head around. But the venture captains, you guys decided on Pathfinder. So fast forwarding to now, Ray joins the server, you guys get talking. What got you guys playing together? Was there an actual let's play together before you guys actually started deciding to make an actual YouTube channel about this?
So it was literally just, that's the whole purpose of the server, was for the purpose of organizing Pathfinder games and occasionally a couple of 5e ones. I was originally invited in as a 5e player by my friend Martin, and he basically just said, I want to DM a 5e game. And I'm inviting some friends. There's not enough people on Sigil. So I'm inviting some people, other people I know. And that was where I stayed initially, as I didn't ever leave the 5e room of the Discord server. Mostly because Sigil fucking scared me. I apologize for swearing there.
No, that's appropriate F-bomb right there. It is fucking scary.
Yeah, but it scared me because it was one of those Discord rooms that had enough people that there was messages all day, every day. And you'd come back and there'd be like 1,000 messages and you'd be like, I don't want any part of this. But eventually I came out of my shell and I got the 5e game eventually fizzled out, but I was invited to join 2 other Pathfinder games. And that's how I started playing with Henry and such. And the discussion just came up. I'll let Henry continue from here, but the discussion came up of why does nobody read all of these Pathfinder books? There's great stuff in them.
You know, it was kind of like that. This is what started it all. I got really mad. Because I believe we were playing, it was either Rise of the Rune Lords, or we were trying to start a game of Hell's Rebels, which eventually went nowhere. And nobody knew anything about anything. It was kind of the point where Chibi and I were kind of writing everybody's backstory because they just didn't know where Chaliax was, what it meant, what their classes were supposed to do, who the gods were. And I know it kind of weirded me out, the fact that nobody ever bothered to look it up. And then I started talking to people and I kind of started to get it. It's so many books that you have to read. to
It's
get
so many
this
books,
setting.
and so many of them are as boring as a Silmarillion or worse.
Well, Pathfinder is still relatively
it's not
new.
bad.
Pathfinder has seen 2007, 2008, and it's 10 years, and they're trying to cram as much lore to make the world as vivid as they can to compete with 40 years of Forgotten Realms kind of stuff and Greyhawk, and you know what I mean? So they've got a big team, they're cramming it all in there. Didn't have that slower exposure and a key book like the Drit series or something to rope a bunch of people where they started dropping names. Unfortunately, if you want to make this world for a GM, it can be a daunting task. I myself switched over to Pathfinder only a couple years ago, and well, that's one reason I reached out to you guys. It's like, maybe I could cheat and use these guys to, like, be sort of like a satellite rules lawyer, a satellite lore master that I can call it, saying, we had a debate in our recent podcast, Dice Before Dishonor, where all Cavalier party are running around in Taldor, and we haven't even hit episode 1 of War for the Crown, Crownfall, The Adventure. We did a Pathfinder Society set there, and there's this whole thing about the religion of Sarenrae and the lore that goes with it, how it was banned, is it brought back, and one of our Cavaliers is a believer in Sarenrae. And we get into these arguments about what the wiki says versus a book that I just read versus another book which just came out that I hadn't read. Is it banned? Is it illegal? Is it back? Oh, okay, it came back, but it's only a shrine, not a temple. So it would be kind of like, the spin we put on it would be, it's kind of like something suddenly legal, but it's been shunned for a long time. So it's not like every neighbor and older person just suddenly accepts you with open arms. It's legal. They can't, stop you. But it's not like this great big hug fest, and sorry, I digress. It's going off to a bunch of interesting lore, but you got to decide on what you're going to do, or they have to decide, is it here, isn't there? So your video that you guys was the first one I watched was on Taldor, and you guys went the whole gauntlet of Origins, Wandering Pilgrims, right up until pretty much recent day. And it connected a lot of dots for me. And I'm hoping that GMs and players, because it's not such an in-depth, it's not like a spoiler alert. It's one of the biggest things I liked about the Venture Captains. It's like players can watch it and go, oh, okay, now I know where I am. I have a feel for the place and in Taldor or whatever episode you guys are watching. And the DM gives me more as I explore.
Hey, Henry. Did we put a spoiler warning on one of the videos? I vaguely remember that.
Yes, it's on the
Crown?
Fighters of Golarion episode. Yeah. And it's a really minor thing, but it kind of ruins a slight...
We do actually avoid spoilers as much as we can.
Curse of the Crimson Throne.
We want to give people the essential knowledge that you would need before going into a campaign. Not just tell you everything about that you're going to discover in a campaign. Exactly.
You guys aren't just reading off the page. You guys have taken Henri and I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name already. I'm really bad with names.
Chibi.
And Chibi's name and the lore that you guys are pumping out. You guys put a script, you run it by Ray, you back and forth type of thing. Ray's learning from an audience perspective, and then bang, he has the charming UK voice. It gets out there, and then we get to the video aspect. So you guys have a script. You've decided on a topic. Where does the video part come into play with all those great photos that you guys dig up? Those copyright photos you're digging out of books. How do you get around that? The copyright aspect, the fact that you got all these, all the artwork up.
So that's a tricky topic, and it's one of the many things that is tricky about copyright on YouTube, because we're still not profiting at all from these videos. They are done entirely for educational purposes. Now, YouTube does allow you to use material from other people for educational purposes. It's considered fair use, but it's a very bizarre legal gray area where you have to be very careful. And if someone pushes for you to remove it, it's generally best to not fight them on it at all. Just remove it. Just accept that you can't use that. But people are more and more generally cool about it. There's generally this understanding that if you're transforming a piece of work, if you're taking something as simple as a single piece of art and making it part of a much larger original video in which you put in a considerable amount of your own work and your own effort, then people are generally fine with it. But if they're ever not, you have to be prepared to just say, okay, I understand, I'll take it out and I'll use something else, or I'll just not have anything there at all.
Oh, that's good.
A lot of the images do come from books specifically. We try to use as much official Paizo art as possible because we think they're the least likely to sue us. because it's just like, hey, someone's actually like explaining our stuff. They are using it for explicitly educational purposes. We do occasionally use stuff like fan art, but we avoid that when we can, or we make sure that they at least get credit, that we include their names and signatures in the art, or we try to find the source for it as much as possible so that it can be put into the credits on the video, or specifically the description, because if we try to put it on the actual video's credits, those things would be like 5 minutes long.
Yeah, no, I understand. We try to tread lightly as well ourselves here at Mongers Network, and it's not easy. You get inspired by a picture, you make a comment or whatever, and if you don't have a backlog of credits and permissions, someone's just going to shut you right down. But you guys are doing well. You have half a dozen videos up right now.
About that, yeah. Closer to, because we've done one pretty much.
We have
like
11 actually, if I don't remember.
Oh, close to a dozen.
We've done like once a month, so I'd say it's probably like 13, maybe.
No, it's actually it should be 11 because we started in January and we've never gone above one a month, sadly.
Yeah, we've done at least one a month, and in the first month, I think we did 2 weeks apart. So I think we've done about a dozen. I would say about a dozen.
So our listeners and your fans can count on basically a monthly release, hopefully, in the future. And I noticed you're not just talking like a history lesson. Like I brought the Taldor one because I'm engaged in that, and it seemed like a history lesson, but you have a fighters, you have a wizards. You guys talk more about not just like a geography or a history book kind of lore. You get into some of the aspects of Pathfinder. You have one on the fighters of Galorian. There was a good one I was watching on Valencia? Varisha, thank you. I'm so bad with the English language. Common is fun. It's a running joke. Anyway, how a lot of people just believe even that's their core, that's their starting ground, thanks to Rise and Rune Lords or whatever. There's a lot of misconceptions that you guys brought up in your video that I thought was really neat. You guys go to the juicy bits. Like you said, no one wants to read 30 pages or something, even though I'm supposed to. I guess I better get back to that. But I think what you guys highlight will actually get people more interested in going back to those books to actually go to fill in the missing blanks, because you've hit on some very interesting specific topics like the Shoanti tribes, how there are several of them and they're disjointed. And, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, well, that's kind of really cool. And you guys show the artwork and the symbols that pop up on the map. You know, it's the guided tour type of thing. I think is really what's going to hook people.
Henry would have a pitch in on that because obviously you know Henry because you're the one who puts them there. But for every episode in the description, one of the things you'll find there is links and names of all the books that we use as the source of information so that people can look them up if they want more information.
Oh, that's
Not
good.
necessarily links. We just list the names, like the complete actual names, so people can look it up and buy it in the Paizo
Yeah,
store.
a lot of them are actually just straight
go
up
to the
books,
local
so
game
obviously we
store.
can't link to those. But yeah, we generally try to make our sources of information as available as possible to people, because we know that there's going to be those in their audience who want to learn more, and we're not going to be able to cover everything in the video.
Okay.
Yeah, these books are 70 pages long, and trying to cram them into a 6-7 page script it's not
about
possible.
That actually. We recently started debating what to do for the new episode, which I won't spoil on here, but basically we picked another topic.
Oh, please do.
And
what can the fans expect next month?
Something magic related, I'll say that much.
Magical.
But basically we were just discussing, like, okay, we either do only the bare essentials, which is going to be 7 minutes of footage, or we do everything related to this, which is going to be over 30 minutes. 7 we feel like is a bit too short. 30 will kill Henry. We had to go over a little bit of a deep cuts and just see, all right, which out of these are actually interesting. I said to Henry, okay, pitch these to me. I want you to pitch to me a layman in just a paragraph. Why is this group cool? Why should we hear about them? Why should they appear in the episode? And we went through them, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
So where does your silent partner come in this. Like, so Henri's got all this lore and he's reading it all and he's putting together a script, and Ray not only represents the voice of the channel, but you're also sort of like, in layman's terms, or like the audience going, this needs to be shorter, this is too long kind of thing. You actually have that perspective where one might add too much and one just goes, okay, I'm bored, can we dial this back? What about partner number 3? Where does she play into this?
Chibi's role is actually very similar to Henri's. The two of them split up the research. They will decide to say, okay, we have like 8 books to read. You take 4, I'll take 4. They'll make notes together.
It would take way too long if we just do it myself.
They're both responsible for writing the script. There's parts from both of them in there. They'll both have input on the changes that I make. Chibi will often help me with jokes because we've realized over time that me and Henri have a very different sense of humor. Whereas Chibi is very much halfway in between us. There's a lot of jokes that I can make that she'll get, but Henri won't. And there's a lot of jokes that Henri will make that she gets, but I won't. And she helps bridge the gap with us. I remember there was one, I forget what it even was, but it was some kind of smash joke where I was basically poking fun at how a character is super overpowered and no one likes to deal with them. And I think I subtly inserted an image of Bayonetta and Smash, and she got that, but Henri didn't because he doesn't play it. And so we had to explain that to him and try to justify keeping the joke in of like, will people actually get this enough for it to actually be kept in? And after that, after the script is done and the video editing's done, she is largely the last thing that she does is she does the subtitling for Spanish. That kind of goes back and forth between her and Henri, but she tends to do it.
She does it more often. And one thing you forgot is that she usually cleans up the images that we find, so that to save me time.
We all do that.
So you can stack them over the background.
Images tend to be PNGs. Well, we make them PNGs if they're not already, and that can be very time consuming. I remember one episode in particular, we had forgotten to do it, and Henri didn't mention as such. He just thought, okay, I'm going to get to work. And he had blown an entire day cleaning up those images, and then afterwards told us that's what he had been doing the whole time. And I'm like, oh shit, sorry, man. We should told us. We would have helped you. We would have split the workload. Because they are just really annoying and time consuming. But it's basically just like putting those images into like Photoshop or something similar, and then just removing the background either by hand or using something like the Magic Wand tool.
Yeah, it's almost like doing a scissor cut of a little doll, and you got to go around the person because you don't want the words of wherever you pull that image from.
I used to do it manually for making thumbnails. It was the worst. It took forever. And then I discovered the Magic Wand tool, and I'm like, oh my God. I want those like 100+ hours of my life back.
Well, they're gone now, but your audience will always appreciate the little extras of any content you create. Those little polished effects and whatever you make you stand out. Now, you were talking about worried about jokes that stick and don't stick. I'm gonna admit there were a couple of references and stuff that either went over my head or I'm too old or too young, but that wasn't my takeaway. My takeaway was the time, the effort, the music, the pacing of the script. And if you're saying this is a 3-way collaboration and there is no venture captains with all of you involved, I think they're going to understand that, it might take a month to put out a 20-minute video. But in the end,
a large part of that is research. Like, truth be told, making an episode once research is done can take less than a week. That part's relatively fast. It's the research part, and also the fact that we all 3 of us have lives and jobs and education to deal with, and that can just eat into our time a lot.
Well, let's talk about that. What do you do for a living, Ray?
So I've moved between a few jobs in the time that I've been doing Pathfinder. Currently, I'm working, and I need to preface this, I'm working inbound calls at a call center. I am not the one calling people. They are calling me. So I am not that ear-hole. No, I'm the one who has to help the idiots.
Honey, look in the back of the package. There's got to be customer service. Hello, Ray speaking. Your UK outsource connection to, well, we won't get into your company, but we get it. And I'm glad you made that distinction.
I don't mind seeing. I work for the post office in the UK.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, literally just finding people's packages, telling them when they can expect them, report, like if they need to report that something's missing or they've had an incident with the postman. I have to deal with all of that.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not Amazon. I'm the UK Postal Service. No, that's good. And what about you,
Pretty
Henry?
much, yeah. I mean, goes to Amazon all too often. We're the ones who complete the last leg of the journey, so we still have to deal with those too.
Yeah, that is true. A lot will go through your hands. Henri, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So I'm a full-time student, and I mostly just try to not die when I head to the finals. And
what do you study? Would you tell us what is your studied vocation for the future?
Yeah, I am majoring in industrial relations, or maybe professional. The name's actually kind of up for debate. We call it labor relationships here. It's the entire social science investigation field that relates to work, labor, and basically how the work of a people impacts them, impacts the environment, impacts the economy, and the world around us in general.
So are you like the HR guy at General Motors down in Argentina? Or are you the guy that sort of has a studied look at, how is this factory impacting the social structure, the economics, the environment, that type of thing?
By the sounds of it, it sounds like he's the kind of person who one day expects to join like a think tank.
Well, there's
like
both.
Like a problem solver type guy.
The research field is really broad. There's a lot of people who, from my career, who go into human resources positions, and that's fine. And there's a lot of us who actually go into the academics. We become researchers and, study the impact of certain labor policies and how it made work either more or less fair for the workers, and how it impacted the profits of companies, how it impacted GDP, that kind of stuff.
Well, those listening and watching, I think they can see a connection here. Like you said, you're into lore, and your job reflects that. And Ray deals with sort of a one-on-one, or is sort of in the business, because to be live on a phone call or whatever, and you've picked him to be your voice. So no, I totally get that. How you can you guys are playing to your strengths.
Honestly, but I only recently started doing call centers. That was the last 2 jobs I've had. Before that, let me go down the list.
Was there a vocation that you always wanted to be, or the most years put in?
I did retail. Then I became a chef. I trained for that for like multiple years. Then did more retail, kitchen assistant, warehousing. I learned how to drive a forklift.
It's almost like you're a jack of all trades, and now you are a bard sending the message of lore. You see how I'm making that connection?
It's more like I'm that guy who got fired from everywhere, so I just keep moving on. I never found a place that made me happy, so I just kept moving on to different job types.
Nothing wrong with that. You get locked into something and you're miserable for 20 years. To put food on the table, it's an honorable vocation, but then again, you need something like this. You need the hobby or something to put your passion in. Well, we've been speaking with Ray and Henri, and kudos to Chibi for, making Venture Captains on YouTube something that you could experience, something that I think you're going to enjoy, and something that I think everyone's going to want to see more of. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show.
That's no problem. It was good glad to be here.
And perhaps we can see more of you in the future. Perhaps, I don't want any spoilers or whatever, but we did say that my people are talking to their people about collaboration. There's a lot of lawyers involved. There's nothing's been set on the table. Of course, there's never money going back and forth. But stay tuned. And in the meantime, go to YouTube, check out Venture Captains. They are definitely Mongers Network approved, and we hope that you learn something about the Pathfinder world and Golarion. And, thanks to the hard work these guys put in.
I'll throw one last thing out there that I forgot to mention about the process. So it's us 3 specifically for the majority of episodes, but in recent times I've had some help from a friend. I spoke to you off camera about this. My friend New from News Art on YouTube. She is an artist and a personal friend of mine, and she did the she was the one I commissioned in order to make the tiefling animation. She actually only did the art pieces for it, and I did the animation myself with some tweening techniques that I just self-taught myself over the course of an hour.
No, that's great. That's great. So she's involved? Or on call?
Sort of involved. It's more like she's outsourced, I guess. I paid her for that commission to get the art pieces, and as a personal favor, she did the Ustalav This Is Halloween song at the beginning.
Oh, no,
So
that's great. See, there you go. Credit where credit's due. Can we have her
Yeah.
name and channel again?
Her name is so her online handle is new, so that is November Golf Uniform. To use the fucking sorry, I swore again. To use the my work terms for using the phonetic alphabet, it's November Golf Uniform, and it's news art, and you can find her on YouTube, you can find her on Facebook, and you can find her on Twitter. She's on pretty much everything, but I think she's on like Twitter and what's that other one that we all don't like to talk about? The art website that does blogs.
Tumblr?
Tumblr, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. But she's everywhere, and she goes by news art.
That's
and
great.
She did the singing, and you can also find her a lot on my own channel, which because we do a lot of Let's Plays together.
No, that's great. I couldn't be putting this up on our YouTube channel as a video without help from Michael Kasevin, Ask a Pathfinder, who now goes as Dead Aussie, and you can find him on YouTube as well, giving me some great advice and his precious time about layovers and doing layouts and that type of thing, and through him meeting others. Now, I find this interesting going, oh, thank you for these people, but a lot of people consider that name dropping, so I will not get into those names, but I do thank those YouTubers that have helped me, and the list is long. So good night, everyone. Good day. Play it again. Listen back. Make sure you go to Venture Captains on YouTube, and we hope to see more of you gentlemen working with us in the future. Thanks for being on the show.
Doodle pip.